those images and sound recordings. Attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this could infringe the data protection rights of that individual. Apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Leslie Fage, Councillor Mark Foster, Councillor Ramsey, and I understand Councillor Frank Foster is joining via Zoom, and that Councillor Woodhead may be late. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to, firstly, pecuniary interests and then non-pecuniary interests. So does anybody have any pecuniary interests? No. Any non-pecuniary interests? Councillor Russell.
I need to declare for item 10H because it's a neighbour's tree.
Thank you. And anybody else? Councillor Strawn?
Non-pecuniary in 9C, the parking standards for new developments, as I live within the 500-metre radius.
Okay, thank you. Any others? No. Okay. Yes, Councillor Alban.
Is this the right point? I want to raise a point of order. I wanted to ask if it's necessary for item 15 to be exempt.
We can discuss that when we get to the exempt point. So obviously I will ask for somebody to move the resolution. I think I'll give a brief update now, but it looks like we're going to have a little bit more time than anticipated to submit our response. So that gives us an opportunity to discuss an exempt if we want to, about how to proceed, and we can always come out of exempt session if needed at that point. So we'll get to that discussion in due course, Councillor Alban. Item 3, Town Mayor's announcements. I have 7 or 8 announcements, I've lost count. On the 25th of November, I attended the Christmas light switch on. It was very well attended by members of the public, and the quality of the Christmas lights this year has been very, very well received. I think we're all very pleased to see the town centre so full, particularly as it clashed with the England-USA match. And speaking to many of the traders, you honestly wouldn't have known there was an England match on. So a very positive response, and thank you to all the council staff who worked so hard for several months in the lead up to that evening, and indeed on the evening itself and throughout the day. On the 26th of November, I attended the East Beds Concert Band concert, which was at Stratton Upper School. A very enjoyable classical concert with talent of all ages from this part of East Bedfordshire, and I look forward to going to their spring concert in April. On the 27th of November, I attended the Made in the Wade Christmas fair and spent far too much money on gifts for my family, and I haven't even started any other shopping other than that. On the 9th of December, I attended the official opening of HBC Logistics on Stratton Business Park, a new company which are investing in Biggleswade following expansions from Baldock and elsewhere. So we look forward to welcoming them. Also on the 9th, I attended the Drove Road groundbreaking sort of service to start the work on the Drove Road Cemetery and the chapel. The scaffolding is already up. I understand work will be starting very shortly, but this is a very interesting start of a huge project for the council over the next 3 years. On the 10th of December, I attended the Sleeping Beauty pantomime of the Biggleswade Amateur Theatrical Society. Do you want to drink, Councillor Bond? You're all right. Which was again very well attended on the Saturday afternoon show that I made it to. One last announcement, just a reminder that on the 21st of December we have the Development Management Committee, where there are 2 applications from Biggleswade which will be considered there, one being related to Land East, the other being related to, I think it's 19A High Street. So if anybody wishes to go and speak on behalf of the Town Council, please do so. Sorry, those are all of my announcements. Councillor Russell, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to share with colleagues a notification from the Department for Transport today about the A1A428 project. They had planned to start work this month, but an organisation called the Transport Action Network has submitted an application to the High Court for permission for a judicial review of the Secretary of State's decision to grant the development consent order. They're challenging the Secretary of State's decision on the grounds of biodiversity, climate change, and the need for the scheme. It looks like a decision on that application won't be made until early into 2023. And they say that because it's an ongoing legal case, they can't provide any further information. So we'll see where we go with that one.
Yeah, watch this space. Thank you, Councillor Russell. Item 4, public open session to adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council through the chairman pertaining to matters listed on the agenda. Each speaker will give their name to the chairman and will be given 1 3-minute slot. We don't have anybody in the chamber. Is there anybody online? No. Okay, I'll move on. Item 5, it's a great pleasure to welcome our invited speaker, Caroline Smith, who's going to talk to us about the 3G football pitch all-weather sports surface project for Stratton Upper School. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and hopefully presentations, you've got a copy as well, but it will be shared. Thank you for giving me the opportunity just to really update you on where we are with the project, and I've also got Jones with me, who's head of PE at the school as well, who's come along this evening. So if you want to move on. So where we are is that we've been working for probably about the last 18 months now to try to get to a position where we can have a full-size, fenced, floodlit, third generation artificial grass pitch on the school site. It will be a facility that's suitable for both training and affiliated match play. It is restricted in terms of other league rules to the level that the match play can take place on there, but for the general community grassroots football, they will be able to play matches on it. And hopefully, subject to planning approval, we will be looking for school use to about 5 p.m. most days, and then community use 5 till 10 in the week, and then at weekends as well. This drawing isn't quite 100%, but if you've seen the planning application which has been submitted to Central Beds, this is the location of where the pitch would be. So those that know the site, it's at the back of the sports hall. The location's been chosen because it provides direct access to changing rooms, so they're available, but also spectator toilets, back of the leisure centre, so that it opens up the site to the community. And the next drawing really just gives you an overview of what the pitch would look like, and the other markings are really the other school markings from a sports perspective, to show that there isn't any impact on other sports, recognising that this is primarily an artificial football pitch, but the school will still be able to deliver its whole PE curriculum throughout the year. And if you flick onto the next pitch, just have a this actually gives you an overview of the pitch, and you can see that lots of different coloured lines cater for the different age groups of football and opportunities that could be played on the site. So effectively, it is set out that there could be 4 5-a-side little pitches taking place, 2 7-a-sides, 2 9-a-sides, or a full 11-a-side. So at any one point, there can be a whole different combination of users on the pitch. And the grey areas are kind of hard standing areas that are for access and for spectators as well. But it is effectively almost a self-contained facility that will be built. And I apologise because I am speaking very fast, but want to get kind of through this for you. So obviously it's no surprise, and certainly been in discussions with yourself, that there is a shortfall of artificial pitches in this local area. The Central Bedfordshire playing pitch strategy is currently under review. I think you may have commented on that fairly recently. But that, along with the local football facilities plan, will identify what that shortfall of pitches is. There will be other pitches that will be established, but over the numerous discussions and years, different sports sites have been explored, and Stratton Upper School was identified and has now been prioritised to move this project forward. The Meridian Trust, who are the overall multi-academy trust that manage and oversee Stratton, have already worked with the Football Foundation on a number of projects on different sites, and they have a number of community lettings programs and facilities that they're delivering on their school sites. So that they've got a good track record of delivering community-based facilities. And as part of this, because we're looking at not just the football side, we'll be looking at opening the site up further. So although there is community use, we want that to grow. We will be looking at the staffing structure to support that as well. So there may be, you know, employment that comes out of this, part-time or full-time roles to support the community aspect of the facilities. It's not going to be a facility that's just a key holder responsibility, or I know on some of the users, they perhaps have fobs where they can go in and out. This will require somebody to be there to manage it because of the type of facility that it is. In terms of where we are and the work that I've been doing, so we've been consulting with the local clubs, different community groups and partners, the Be Active partnership, which was the old Team Beds and Luton. And what we want to do is try and ensure that as many people as possible can have access to this pitch moving forward. We have kind of identified and had a strong working relationship with 3 partner clubs at the moment: Biggleswade FC, Biggleswade United FC and Biggleswade FC Youth. But there will be other opportunities for other clubs to be involved in it. And there'll be a mix of both informal and formal football provision at the site. What we've tried to do is make sure that with all of the facilities, it has to deliver the targets around the FA and the Football Foundation, which include things like working with equal access for girls, so opportunities for women and girls, opportunities for disabled people, underrepresented groups as well, so that might be health-based programs, and crucially, because some of the funding comes through the Football Foundation, they have to ensure that it's affordable and accessible to the local community. So the pricing policy has to reflect their charitable aims and objectives and be affordable. Because it's being delivered in partnership with the Football Foundation, they have undertaken a tender process, and a contractor has been appointed. That contractor has carried out the detailed design work, and they have submitted a planning application about a month ago now, I think it was. The estimated decision date for the planning application is on the website as the 18th of January. I have a feeling it may take a little bit longer to go through than that, but all being well, that's when it will be. We're also continuing our consultation with the clubs and working regularly with those. And although we have some partnership funding, we are looking at other partnership funding towards this project as well. So we have to prove to the Football Foundation that we have exhausted all of the local funding. And so we will keep on that process before we submit to the Football Foundation formally later on in January. And I'll give a bit of an update in terms of their timescales after that. Just a few requirements that the school have to be responsible for, because I think it's important that this isn't going to be an income generation for the school. This is about them being the host of a community facility. They do have to, as part of the requirements to obtain a grant from the Football Foundation, set aside a sinking fund of at least £25,000 a year so that the pitch carpet can be replaced in 10 years. They have terms and conditions that last for 21 years. So there'll be 2 lots of replacement of that carpet effectively during that time period. And they have to maintain the pitch on what's called the FA Pitch Register, which is basically the quality assurance standard to make sure that it can be used by the local community. As I said, pricing policy needs to be affordable, and we have to have a football steering group established as well. So that is a group of the key users, the key partners in the local area. And we're more than happy if the town council wants to have a representative on that steering group that you did as well, and that meet perhaps quarterly to kind of discuss how the facility is operating and what it's providing for the local community. And there's also a development plan that would be written that has targets to be delivered, that again is reviewed annually through the steering group, but also by the Football Foundation. And I think it's key to say that the Football Foundation are investing in the community, that not education. So this is about them, about the community. And the next two slides are just as an example really of the type of programme of use that would be out there. So, you know, you can see it would be school use till around about 4 o'clock, and then a mix between club use and targeted programmes. And then at weekends, we would expect match play as well. So it would be kind of youth match play Saturdays till mid-afternoon, but then Sundays would be a mix of youth and adult football as well. We've kind of worked with the clubs on this programme of use currently, but as the pitch won't actually be in place until next September, we'll revise that as we go through to make sure that when it's open, it's suitable for them. And this is really where we are in terms of timescales. So we have to submit in January, and then the Football Foundation carry out a review till around about March time. All being well, it will then go to their panel in April 2023, and then the build will take about 14 weeks, hopefully for the summer. So the plan will be that it is open to the community from, I've said autumn 2023, probably October half term, if I'm being kind of realistic about the timescales that it is. But we are now well on the way to kind of moving this forward, and hopefully it will provide a real fantastic facility that can be used by people in the local area.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm really excited to see that this is progressing at pace now. Are there any questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Russell.
Just to say that I'm delighted that this is finally going ahead. The idea of a 3G pitch positioned exactly where you're proposing at Stratton has been in the air for 3 or 4 years, and it's really great that it's got this far.
Yes, certainly I echo that. So was sorry, Councillor Strawn.
I think I'd echo the fact that I'm delighted that it looks as though it's coming to fruition, hopefully sooner rather than later. My concern is to make sure that the management structure is in place, so that it's operated easily between the school and the community. And I think that's absolutely crucial with regard to funding, because the facility is far too late in coming. So delighted that it's there, but I think it's very important that the right structure is in place so that it operates efficiently and doesn't have financial difficulties, doesn't have arguments over who should be using it. So welcome it and hope the planning application is successful very quickly in all the funding. But I am anxious that the management agreement is in a suitable form and operational. And I would like to understand how the structure is going to work with staffing, etc., because obviously there are issues just beyond just having a nice pitch which everybody can use, but it's got to be managed.
Yeah. Quite right.
Sorry,
yeah, would you like to respond?
Yeah, we have got a management structure that's kind of talks through at the moment what the proposal is from the school and the trust perspective, but what there will also be is a community use agreement, which will be linked to Sport England, that is very much around ensuring that that facility is made available for community users, the identified clubs. The clubs will have partnership agreements. As we get through to developing that as part of the planning process, we can share that with you, no problem at all.
Super. Any other comments? No. Well, I think we look forward to, we don't have this on our agenda yet as a planning application. I presume we will see it in January time, but I look forward to us being able to look at the planning application in full, but really appreciate the update as well this evening, and very refreshing to see that this is finally happening. And hopefully when I saw that there was sort of an offer in there potentially for a town council representation on the Steerco, so as and when that is sort of fully established, perhaps that's something that council could consider in due course as well. So thank you ever so much, Caroline, and thank you ever so much. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to, but no, that's all right. No, go and have a nice evening, but thank you ever so much.
No problem. And I've got that detail on all the information you've got, so if anybody has any questions, then feel free to drop me an email or give me a call.
Thank you. Thank you, we will do. Thank you so much. Thank you. Item 6, members' questions. Does any member have any questions? Councillor Knight.
Thank you. At the recent FNGP meeting, there was some discussion about our energy contract, and I was expecting further information to be on the agenda this evening. I don't think it is, but can that come to the meeting in January, please? Thank you.
We have that. Thank you. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. Apologies for being late. I was detained at a school play until about 7 o'clock. Just a quick one. A little, I think it was maybe two meetings ago, we discussed in very general terms about the NHS walk-in centre issue. And I was just wondering whether it might be worth having it on a future meeting agenda to discuss whether, as a town council, we want to formally support it or take a decision on it, or seek more information from the NHS, because I'm aware it's quite a live issue locally, and I think it'd be interesting to have a further discussion about it. Thanks.
Okay. I think we do have a normal way of councillors can request anything on an agenda if they so wish. So if you write to the clerk with a proposal, Councillor Woodhead, I'm sure that can be accommodated for a future council meeting. Councillor Alban.
Thank you. I wonder if I can ask if it's possible to do anything to maintain Dan Alban's grave. I stress he's not related to me, he's not the immediate family member. But it is, yeah, there are trees growing out of it. It's quite a substantial grave, and it's in an area where there's lots of other sort of fancy Victorian, Edwardian graves. So I wonder if that could be looked at.
Good question. Is it Drove Road? Is it Drove Road Cemetery? Is it? Yes. Okay. I'm sure we can look into that, can't we, with the Public Realm team? Thank you. Any further questions? No. Okay. So I'm moving on to item 7, which is minutes and recommendations meetings. And this is for members to receive the minutes of the Town Council meeting held on Tuesday, the 22nd of November. I'm going to go through these firstly for accuracy. So are there any accuracy issues on page 8 of the pack? So page 8, accuracy. Page 9. I have one, sorry, on page 9. So 3A, the Royal British Legion, not the British Royal Legion. Can switch that round. Anything else on page 9? No. Page 10? No. Page 11? Councillor Alban?
Thank you. On item 9K, the town crier application. So I wonder if the wording of this is correct. Members agreed to defer the appointment of town crier. I'm not sure we talked about actually making an appointment. So that seems to suggest that we're deferring an appointment that we've never agreed to. Consideration.
Yeah, you're right, Councillor Alban. I think it's members agreed to defer the consideration of a town crier, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For at least 12 months, so that's okay. So that's item, that's 9K. Anything else on page 11? Page 12? Page 13? No. So we happy that this is a true and accurate record of the meeting? Yes? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 8, so matters arising. Any matters arising on page 8? Page 9, Councillor Knight.
Thank you. A question for the officers, please. Is there any update on following up with Central Beds on the internally illuminated signs at the new pizza restaurant, please?
Do we have any update on this?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's something around their A boards as well, which we might need to look into. Anything else on page 9? Page 10? Oh, Councillor Alban.
Yeah, on 9A, the Asda car parking, do we have any update on that? A letter was due to be sent.
Councillor Russell, do you want to give an update on this?
Yes, the council requested the mayor to write to Asda, and the mayor has requested that I should write to Asda instead. There are conflicts of interest on his behalf. So a letter is nearly ready. This member of staff drafted something, but there was other stuff to be added. And I'm just confirming the final details and exactly who it's going to. So that should be sent by the end of the week. I'm sorry for the delay, but you can probably hear I've not been very well for a few days.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Anything else on page 10? No. Page 11? Sorry, Councillor Alban.
Yeah, so on item E on page 11, again, is there any update on the bus route proposal? Have we heard any more?
Karim, do we have any update? Do you want to just come to the microphone?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing specific, just to say that at yesterday's Biggleswade Joint Committee agenda setting meeting, we raised this matter, and it will be put onto the agenda for the 19th of January, I think, meeting, along with a wider strategy for the town and how it links into the interchange. But that's it.
Thank you, Karim. Yeah, I think the main thing there is making sure that we discuss I'm not going to use the word promise because that's probably too strong a word, but it is something of a promise of a detailed discussion about closing the bus exit lane. And that's the specific discussion that hopefully can take place at Biggleswade Joint Committee. And I hope they've got officers there senior enough to answer the questions that need to be answered. That's one for Councillor Foster, I think. Anything else on page 11? No. Matters arising on page 12. Matters arising. Oh, Councillor Alban.
Yes, so item 10E, the planning appeal, 57 Church Street. So it was to be discussed further at the next council meeting. It's not on the current agenda, so I wonder what's happening with that.
Good question. Do you know what's happened there?
So my understanding is because CBC, they wrote back, we requested an extension and that was not forthcoming. They were not minded to give us one, and therefore we will need the opportunity won't arise for this meeting. And therefore we need to consider further how we can do this, essentially.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I think our officers' hands are tied if we requested an extension and the answer was no. Yeah, I think that's just something for us to be mindful of in future, perhaps. Thank you, Karim. Anything else on page 12? Page 13? No, so that's all for matters arising. Item 9, items for consideration. Item 9A, credit control policy for members to receive and consider the credit control report and policy from the finance manager. The finance manager can't be with us this evening. So is there anything to add on this, Peter, before I open to discussion?
No, only to say that obviously this was a matter considered by F&GP and it's now come to full council for agreement.
Thank you. Any comments on this? No, the only comment that I have from the chair is under the paragraph starting first stage chasing. So we reference the credit control team. Is that, I mean, we wouldn't really normally refer to our finance team as the credit control team, would we? So, I mean, if we're talking about specific individuals who feature in other policies, is that better mentioned as the finance manager or just council officers, rather than being that specific?
I think it'd probably be better termed finance team if we wanted to do something rather than credit control team. There is no separate team. So,
okay. Okay. Any further comments? Councillor Russell?
If things have been forwarded from a committee, shouldn't it be a recommendation from the committee? Rather than a separate item on the agenda with a recommendation from officers?
Possibly. Did we discuss it? Councillor Pullen, did this come to F&GP? Did it? I thought it did.
It did, but the F&GP asked for some minor amendments. Yeah.
Okay, so it's recommended subject to those recommendations. Okay, I think that's something to note for future. If it is basically a recommendation for F&GP. Are there any further comments on the credit control policy? No. Councillor Pullinger?
No,
oh no, you're just looking at me funny. Okay, that's fine. Are you going to make a proposal, Councillor?
I propose we accept the policy.
Okay. Could I suggest an amendment that we refer to them as the finance team? Is that okay? So let's go back a few steps. So this is essentially a recommendation from F&GP. So we've discussed this before. There have been a few amendments. It's now come to council. I've just said we reference the credit control team, but we don't actually have a separate credit control team. So if we were calling a spade, it's just council officers. So are you happy to?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Pullinger. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Knight is seconding. Any further comments? No. So the proposal is to accept as laid out, subject to that minor tweak. So all those in favour of that proposal, please show. Thank you. That's everybody. Easy. Peter.
Possible, Chair, just to make one comment connect before there's a debate on the next subject matter.
Is this item 9B?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'll just introduce it first. Item 9B, internal process on backs payments.
Thank you. Right.
Go ahead.
There was one observation by other members already connected to this, which I just wanted to highlight, which is there's been a valid point made, which is, should I be sick or should I be on leave? Or should something unfortunate happen to me, what happens in the circumstances? And the policy has been adapted to say tasks completed by the RFO will be performed by the head of governance if the RFO stroke town clerk is unavailable. So it's an important rider that if I'm not available, then Karim will cover. Thank you.
Okay, so this is really the internal process that is on page 20. Am I right in thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So we did consider a similar process about 5-6 months ago before we actually had the Unity system in place. So now with Rob's experience of actually getting it in place, we do need to make some revisions as are reflected in here. Subject to the amendment that the clerk has just referred to, I propose that we accept this proposed process.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Strawn. Any further comments? No. So subject to that change in the wording based on your availability, we are moving this as proposed. Is there all those in favour of that proposal, please show? That's everybody. Thank you. Item 9C, parking standards for new developments. For members to receive and consider the parking standards and new developments document and consultation information from Central Beds Council. The supplementary planning document is online. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, colleagues. I've had a detailed look at this consultation document. There's a lot in it that is interesting and appears helpful when you first look at the proposed standards. The introduction admits that it's not feasible to remove parking spaces and expect residents to give up their cars without there being alternative modes of travel available. It says that doing so is likely to result in high levels of on-street parking, which is detrimental to encouraging walking and cycling. And very much this policy majors on cycling, almost above any other sort of parking. The document also says that reducing the number of parking spaces for new residential developments is unlikely to see a reduction in car ownership. It also says that parking that's further away or not overlooked is less likely to be used. And I think we know that from our observations around the town. There isn't any recognition in the document that many people will not be able to walk or cycle. The elderly, the less able, parents with young children, or given the poor bus service provided, be unable to use buses very often. This means that adequate parking facilities do need to be provided in all housing. So for residential development, what's being suggested is that the car parking provisions are the same number of spaces as bedrooms for 1 and 2 bedroomed houses, so 1 or 2 spaces, and 1 less than the number of bedrooms for 3 and 4 bedroom houses. Interestingly, it says that single garages will not count, recognising that they're often used for storage, and a double garage will only count as 1 space. The provision for visitor parking is only 1 space per 4 houses, which is not very good, I don't think. But the standards say that the first 2 parking spaces must be provided. This is for 3 and 4 bedroom houses. The 3rd and 4th parking spaces may be provided as accessible land that could be converted to parking by the home owner. This could be provided as grass or a planted area. So the standards build in parking on front gardens effectively, just as they do in older houses which haven't got off-street parking. And it doesn't make in that provision any sort of provision for adequate drainage to stop too fast surface water runoff. So really, effectively, it's only talking about 2 parking spaces for a 4-bedroomed house, one of which may be a double garage, and we know that garages aren't used often. For cycling, on the other hand, residential developments will have to provide a cycle parking space per bedroom, plus one visitor cycle parking space per unit. So for a 4-bedroom house, that would be 5 secure cycle parking spaces. Overall, the policy provides wider parking bays to allow cycles to be taken past cars to access secure parking, and of course also wider bays for disabled parking. On employment sites, the draft parking standards concentrate on provision for cycling and service vehicles. This is appropriate, but the standards do not mention employee parking, which is odd. It's to be noted that our neighbourhood plan goes further for industrial or distribution sites by requiring proper parking, amenities and other facilities for drivers of commercial vehicles. This is to try to stop the kind of thing that happens on Stratton Business Park at the moment, where drivers overnight on the road and then there's various detritus on the road afterwards. Under accommodation for older people, the proposed standard requires 1 parking space per dwelling and a visitor space per 4 dwellings. This does recognise that older people often do still drive, and we've had problems in the past where there haven't been adequate parking spaces for the residents of these units. But the paucity of visitor spaces doesn't recognise the need for frequent visits from medical and other carers, as well as family members. But the real problems with the draft standards arise with the proposed standards for residential development in town centres, and also a concept they put forward of car-free developments. We all know that just because you live in a town centre doesn't mean that you don't need a car. You need a car at the weekends for visiting family, or you may need it for going to work in a nearby town. And we know that if there are bus services, they're not very regular, especially at weekends. And I have to say that in Biggleswade, just a visit to the retail park from the town centre is likely to need a car, particularly if you're buying anything large. The standards propose 500-metre radius circles from the centres of towns in central Bedfordshire and also from railway stations. So this means 2 interlocking circles for Biggleswade. Within these circles, there are proposed standards for infill residential developments of up to 15 dwellings. These standards suggest that 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings will only require 1 parking space, 3 and 4 bedroom dwellings, 2 spaces, and no visitor spaces are required because the document says that public car parks are available within walking distance. The appendices show the effect of the 500-metre radius circles from the War Memorial in Biggleswade Town Centre and the station. They encompass roads which are not town centre and which have no nearby public parking. For example, Bunyan Road, Apple Tree Close, Dilly Croft, The Grove. These proposed policies will encourage on-street parking, but we have to remember that because of the proximity of the station, many of these roads have restrictions to stop commuter parking, but that would also hamper residents parking if there were no off-street provision. And also, we should remember that all town centre car parks have restrictions, so all-day parking isn't possible, unless perhaps a permit is purchased for Rose Lane, but we did put restrictions on that. So residents of any new development would not be eligible for a permit for Rose Lane under current regulations. I also note, tongue-in-cheek, that 52 flats are currently being built in the town centre which do not conform to even the proposed standards. The standards would require a minimum of 52 parking spaces, not the 16 allowed under the planning permission. And as we know, this alone will cause many problems for Biggleswade Town Centre. And then we have this concept of car-free developments. And it says they may be permitted for conversion of an existing building for residential use where parking standards can't be met. and also the subdivision of an existing residential property into multiple properties where parking standards cannot be met. And I think I know that we've got one such application on the agenda later on. And we have seen such proposals previously, but this gives carte blanche to the developments which we've strongly opposed in the past. It's therefore proposed that the Town Council replies to the draft parking standards for new developments, making the following points. 1, the recognition by the consultation document that reducing the number of parking spaces for new residential developments is unlikely to see a reduction in car ownership is not followed through in many of the policies. It's fundamentally unsound to set a parking policy the same for each town in central Bedfordshire without any regard to the particular circumstances of individual towns. The draft standards themselves quote that local authorities are required to set parking standards for their areas, but they should do so having regard to local circumstances and without trying to control car ownership. I don't think that's the spirit of what we see in the standards. And the draft standards do not properly reflect the fact that due to their circumstances, some people will have difficulty walking, cycling, or using public transport. The draft standards for larger residential properties encourage paving of garden space, which will affect the amenity of the area and also rainwater runoff and drainage. Visitor parking for residential developments is minimal. The paucity of visitor spaces for older people's accommodation does not recognise the need for frequent visitors from medical and other carers as well as family. For employment sites, employee parking is not covered. Also, we request that they note the requirement of BEM1 in the neighbourhood plan about facilities for the drivers of commercial vehicles. The draft standards propose 500-metre radius circles from the centres of towns and also from railway stations. They encompass, in Biggleswade, they encompass roads which are not town centre and which have no nearby public parking. And I list the same roads again. I'm sorry for the repetition, but I'm now on to the recommendation. The proposed policies within these circles encourage on-street parking. It should be noted that because of the proximity of the station, many of these roads have restrictions to stop commuter parking, which would also hamper residents' parking if there were no off-street provision. Other roads have commercial premises with limited or no parking. In that one, I was thinking also of Shortmead Street because one of the circles goes down as far as Parklands Place in Shortmead Street. And I know we've already had an issue with one person in Shortmead Street who can't park their car in front of their house. And again, there's an item on the agenda tonight which would be in a similar position. The proposals for car-free development will only exacerbate the situation in Biggleswade Town Centre. Please note policy BTC1 in the neighbourhood plan, redevelopment in the town centre. The proposals both for car-free developments and infill developments in the town centre and town centre as defined by the 500-metre circles, radius circles, which is not the definition in the local plan. There's a separate definition for the town centre. So the proposals are unrealistic and if implemented in Biggleswade will cause many difficulties for the town. It has to be recognised that Biggleswade is an historic market town and traffic flow in the town centre area is difficult already. The town centre is on the west of the town, whereas most of the development is up to the east of the railway line. This already makes access to the town centre difficult. 2 of the railway bridges have had to be made one way and only one of the remaining 2 is really adequate for the volume of traffic. Anything which makes access to the town centre more difficult will affect the viability of town centre businesses and has to be resisted. And then I've said relevant policies of the neighbourhood plan are set out below. These were developed for Biggleswade, noting the particular issues the town faces. And I won't go through the policies, but it's basically BTC1 on development in the town centre, BTM1 on sustainable transport, BRD1 on residential development and BEM1 on employment. So I'm sorry that's a long list of a proposal, but I think it's the points that we need to make in response to this consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Alban. So can I ask if there's a seconder for it first? Yes, there are some seconders, then Councillor Alban can speak. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, it's a question really. So as far as I understand it, if this was adopted, it would supersede parts of the neighbourhood plan. So is the mention of various points in the neighbourhood plan, does that put them back in if they were included?
Councillor Russell.
It won't put them back in, but it's hopefully saying that we have thought about these things in a way that is suitable for Biggleswade, rather than this pan-central Bedfordshire policy, which isn't suitable for Biggleswade, given the layout of our town centre. But I mean, as I understand it, any SPG, supplementary planning guidance, that comes in after the neighbourhood plan will supersede it. And it will be the same if Central Beds review their local plan. Anything in there will then supersede our neighbourhood plan, which will mean that we will then have to review our neighbourhood plan.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Strachan.
Thank you. I've got quite a few comments to make. I agree with the sentiments of Councillor Russell's proposals, but if we start with looking at the 500-metre distance that is proposed for parking, it would help, I think, that when looking at it on page 63 and 62 of the proposal, I don't think they've got the right circumference shown. They're using the same central spot, which is the junction in the centre of the high street. It's not from the station in page 63. So that is out in itself. Certain roads are missed off, I think, in terms of the mentions, because, and this is one of the reasons I declared a non-pecuniary interest, Tennyson Avenue, Chaucer Drive and Dickens Court would be included in some of these issues, but they're not mentioned at all. I think Lawrence Road should probably be included in the second one, so it's not entirely accurate. I think the idea of the 500 metres from the town centre or from the station is ridiculous. It is a long way. It's best part of 550 yards or thereabouts. So it's not a short distance. And if you look at the side roads are blocked. They've got parking restrictions on them already. They haven't actually considered the restrictions are already in place. So I think there are lots of little defects here on that side, and I don't think it's right that visitors can be expected to walk half a mile or so, which it could be if on the outer edges, to the nearest parking. So I don't think this is actually feasible for Biggleswade. There are other things that they've come in. Councillor Russell mentioned cycles. Yes, very keen on cycles, including electric cycles, which are illegal. They've got various charging points included for cars and things, which is sensible. But when it comes to disabled parking spaces and parking, it's inadequate because they open the door, they want the doors opened at the side wide enough, but they overlook the fact that people will have wheelchairs and mobility scooters that will need to be got into the backs of cars. So they need bigger spaces there. They should set a size for a single garage so that you can get a car in. And if you want to park a car in there, you can actually get out of the car in the garage, because most single garages are so narrow that you might get the car in there, but you're going to remain in the car until you drive it out later. So it would be very helpful if they dealt with that. And I think there's an emphasis on cycles, not enough on the elderly or the disabled in here in terms of the practical side of it. I think there are some elements, they are recognising the fact that cars may have to be in this area for more than they recognise. So I think some of the proposals are improvements in terms of recommendations, but I think Councillor Russell's entirely right when saying that you're just leaving the front lawn to be concreted over for car parking is wrong. It should be included automatically in the proposals. So a lot to be welcomed. And again, they've got to consider the road parking on the roads and the implications of visitor parking being allowed on roads, because there are a number of side roads here that are too narrow to allow emergency vehicles through when parking's taking place.
Thank you, Councillor Strachan. Any last comments? No. So we have Councillor Russell.
Sorry, could I just say that I think that Councillor Strachan has made some good points there, and I'd like to include under this long list of responses the fact that actually their diagram is wrong. You're quite right. I hadn't actually looked at that because I'd assumed where the station was. I was looking at so much other detail. I think that's right, and that it does encompass more residential streets. So I think that should be pointed out. And I think we should point out that mobility scooters, which are wider than cycles, haven't necessarily been considered, and also rear access to vehicles. So I'd like to add those two items. I think otherwise what you were saying was more or less amplifying what I'd already put, but I would add that the idea of front gardens and you can pave them over and all that, it's just allowing for denser development all the time, which does actually go against the neighbourhood plan, where we are trying to make sure that people have proper amenity space within the curtilage of their own homes. So I think I'd like to add that one as well, please.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Is the seconder happy with that, Councillor Alban?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Any last comments? No. So I'm not going to try to list the grounds on which we're objecting, but I think they're written down, Councillor Russell, so I'm sure you're comfortable providing those to our officers to respond on behalf of the council. All those in favour of responding in the way that was outlined a few moments ago by Councillor Russell, please show. That is everybody. Thank you. Item 10, planning applications, including new wording under item 10, Councillor Foster. I hope that's okay. Although I did spot an email from you earlier, I'm sure staff have picked that up. Item 10A, 45 High Street, installation of bird detergent netting and bird points to side and rear of bank with a steel mesh access gate to deter birds. Councillor Alban.
I assume that means deterrent rather than detergent.
You know, it's not until you read it out that you realise these things. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to move no objection.
No objection. Is there a seconder for that proposal? No. Any further comments? No. So no objection to the bird deterrent as outlined. All those in favour of no objection? Thank you. Yes, that's fine. 10B, Unit 2 to 5, Stratton Business Park, Gold Road, advertisement, non-illuminated and illuminated signage for building identification, logo signs, park entrance, directional, building specific signs. Any comments on this? No, no objection? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. C, Unit E, A1 Retail Park. So this is variation of condition 20. I think we've seen this before, although if I'm not mistaken, it was Unit B previously, and now we're looking at Unit E. Either way, it's the same planning condition, I believe. So any comments on this? Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I think this is a vacant unit at the moment, and I think the condition should stand. It was originally there for a reason. I'm particularly concerned about the suggestion of a pharmacy operating there, because I think that could be detrimental to the pharmacy operating or the pharmacies operating in the town centre. So I would like to propose that we oppose the variation of condition.
Is there a seconder for that proposal? Yes, there is. Councillor Russell, did you wish to speak?
Just to say that there was a very good reason for the condition, and we are trying to protect the town centre as much as we can. So yes, I agree entirely that it should, the condition should stand.
Thank you. Councillor Strawn.
An observation, I may be incorrect on this, but I believe there are a limited number of pharmacy licenses available for Biggleswade. And if there is a pharmacy that could be operated outside the town centre, that would be an excuse to move the pharmacy from the town centre out to a retail park, which isn't going to be suitable for the community.
Thank you. Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, no, just for further clarification, I understand that's why Boots don't operate a full pharmacy at the retail park for that exact reason. So it is consistent in terms of opposing this anyway. So.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. So previously, Councillor Knight, we did strongly object. Are you comfortable with that wording? I presume we haven't backtracked at all, have we? No, so we're strongly objecting, just to be clear. Okay, the second is happy with that as well. Any last comments? Councillor Bond.
Obviously, I won't. This is not part of my remit. It's Biggleswade South as well, but maybe you might want to ask the ward councillor to call it in if the council they're like minded to approve it.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can take up with two ward councillors for Biggleswade South. I'm sure officers could note that if that's all right, please. Okay, so we are strongly objecting to this variation of condition as it was originally put in place to protect the town centre and should stand. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 9D, the Cattery Home Farmhouse on Dunton Lane. So this is an outline application for 9 new residential properties following the demolition of the existing house and outbuildings. Any comments on this, please? Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note that it's 9 and not 10 dwellings, which means that they don't have to provide any social housing. Yeah, I'd like to express some concern. It might not come to anything, but the green wheel runs alongside this site, so don't want anything to interfere with that in any way. And I note that the officers' reports are very concerned about the loss of some trees on the site, and the ecology report is concerned about biodiversity being affected with this development. So I'm not sure we should object, but I think there are concerns about this application.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Councillor Russell.
Well, I think we should object, and if Councillor Alban hasn't made a proposal, I propose that we do object. It's not only no social housing, it's no Section 106 contributions. What's being proposed are 9 4-bedroomed houses, and the application says there'll be 36 parking spaces. Now, that's a lot of parking spaces on that site, but even if all of those parking spaces weren't needed for people living there, it could be as many as 20 cars at least coming and going every day. The exit onto Dunton Lane is very close to the roundabout with Saxon Drive. You've also got the blind corner coming round when you come into Biggleswade from Dunton, and all that extra traffic, I think, is too much. And I couldn't see a highways officer's report yet on the website, but I think we should certainly oppose this application on highways issues, given where the driveway would open out onto Dunton Lane. And I think also it's just another example of housing and cars, which are going to add to the congestion on the access to the A1 in the mornings. And I think that's something we should flag up, as well as the issues that Councillor Alban has raised about trees and the green wheel and biodiversity. So I think we should object on all of those grounds.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. So just to summarise before I ask for a seconder, it would be objecting on the grounds of the entrance and exit to the site, essentially being on a blind corner close to a roundabout, adding to the congestion on the way to the A1, plus the ecology, potentially the loss of trees, and basically pointing to the concerns raised by the ecology and biodiversity officer.
Yeah, and the impact on the green wheel.
And the impact on the green wheel. Okay, is there a seconder for that proposal? Yes, there is. Any further comments, Councillor Alban? Yeah,
I'm happy to second that. The green wheel obviously crosses Dunton Lane at that point. So the points that Councillor Russell raises are very pertinent, I think. So we get more traffic movements where people are crossing Dunton Lane using the green wheel.
Right, okay, yes, thank you. So that's the point about the green wheel, isn't it? It's the crossing of Dunton Lane. Okay, further comments, anybody? No further comments. Okay, so I'll move to the vote. So all those in favour of objecting on the grounds outlined a moment ago, please show. And that is everybody, thank you. Item 9E, land at Springfield Bungalow and Stratton Farm Cottages and close to Bridle Way 58. This is demolition of 3 existing dwellings and construction of 3 B8 units together with associated access vehicle parking landscaping. I understand this is a Tritax Symmetry submission. Any comments, Councillor Russell?
Yes, I mean, on the whole, I think that what we've seen of Tritax Symmetry so far has been reasonable. But one of the things that worries me about this is that it's more units with heavy goods vehicles coming off of Stratton Business Park, again, adding to the congestion for the A1 South. And how much longer do we allow this to go on? We don't know yet what's going to happen with land north of Furston Hall. We don't know what's going to happen with the 1,500 houses to the east of Baden-Powell Way. And we're building up more and more traffic to a roundabout that just can't cope with it. So I think we should, I don't think I'm going to propose objecting, but I think we should make a very strong point about access to the A1.
Okay, strong comments. So no objection, but serious concerns over the amount of traffic.
I'd be willing to hear or like to hear what other people have got to say, but I am concerned about that traffic aspect.
Okay, let's continue with the comments and see how that proposal fleshes out. Any further comments on this? Something that I know we've spoken about in the past that I wanted to raise was when we have these major applications come forward, and let's be in no doubt this is a major application in terms of the amount of floor space that will be going down here, is that presumably there is Section 106 money that comes with this development, and we should be saying at the point at which the planning application is submitted where we'd like to see Section 106 negotiated. And we know very well, particularly the shortage of leisure facilities that there are in the town, and the fact that we are running out of land very quickly to put some kind of new, whether it's sports facility or whatever. This is something that we should potentially be championing at the earliest possibility. I'll leave that out there, but others can comment. Okay, Councillor Russell, I'll come back to you. I'm not seeing any other indications. So.
Okay, well, you've raised a good point with Section 106, and at least two of us sitting around the table have received emails from a business on Stratton Business Park, which is very worried about the safety of speeding vehicles. And I can't remember which road, but it's on Stratton Business Park, and they're asking for a roundabout to slow traffic down. Now that would be a very suitable 106 as well for a development like this, even if it's not on a direct line of the access road. So perhaps I'll be bolder and suggest that we do object because of the build-up of traffic on the A1 South roundabout, but also say that we think that Section 106 should contribute to road safety on the Stratton Business Park, particularly with a junction that's been highlighted, but also point to the lack of leisure facilities.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Is there a seconder for that proposal to object? There are seconders. Okay. Further comments, Councillor Strawn.
I'm concerned that we're objecting and then suggesting there be Section 106 monies and improvements, because that's a kind of counterintuitive. I think we should be expressing concerns about the access and the vehicle speeds and road safety, not only on the estate, but also with regard to the A1 roundabout. And also that if the development does go ahead, there should be some contribution to the infrastructure for the benefit of the town, whether it be included on the roadway, the access there, A1 South roundabout or whatever. So I'm just wondering whether the proposal is a bit confusing if we're saying that we want Section 106 monies and we don't want the development. So I don't think you can have it both ways. Okay. Should we be either supporting it and saying subject to these things being adequate and expressing our concern? I see Councillor Bond in his planning hat on, I'm sure might give some guidance on that, but I just think it's the proposal at the moment. I'm a bit confused.
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. You made the point. Councillor Bond.
Obviously, I'm speaking generally here. Often when applications come to DMC, there's 106s or whatever linked to the application, and town councils or parish councils often come to DMC and say, actually, they go for all the reasons why they're opposed to an application, and then they say at the end, but if you're minded to approve it, we would like you to actually consider X, Y, and Z. And actually, it is important, even if you are against something, to be pragmatic to realise that if you aren't successful, you might want to try and influence where that 106 money will go. So there's no harm, and it's not one or the other. You can still object, but say, if minded, that you would like 106 money to be considered for these reasons. It doesn't mean you can't object.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Russell.
When we considered the application for the Network Rail works at the side of the railway near Cow Close, we thought that there was a strong possibility that DMC would approve that application when it went to DMC. But we asked for that condition, didn't we? That after the 10-year period, that the land should be returned to its current state. And I think this is a similar sort of situation where we have to recognise that it is more likely than not that the application will go ahead. But I think actually objecting and then putting down those conditions gives it a bit more strength.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Are there any last comments? Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, I think we should, I don't think I caught it in your proposal, but one of the comments from one of the CBC officers in relation to public transport strongly suggests that there should be a bus service from this site to the town centre. And I think we should emphasise that in our response as well as a request.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Yeah, it does feel, if I may say from the chair, like whilst I think generally on balance, Stratton Business Park has provided huge opportunities for the town. There has oftentimes been a lot of talk about associated infrastructure, and some of that has been, some of those decisions have had to be made quite quickly without this council really being able to have much of a say over it. So this feels like the fact that this planning application is coming to us, it's a bit of a unique opportunity to flag some of these things up, but members will make up their minds. Are there any last comments? No, so we're going to go to a vote. The proposal is to object on the grounds of traffic build-up to the A1 with, as far as we can see, no mitigation, but noting that if officers are minded to pass this application, that we'd like to see section 106 money related to speeding, access to the A1, leisure facilities, and in terms of sustainable transport to the town centre in terms of buses. Is that a fair summary? All those in favour of that proposal, please show. Thank you. Any against? No, so that's everybody. Item 9F, land south of Lodge Farm Poultry Unit, Iworth. Erection of a single wind turbine. Again, I'm not sure why this has come to us. Are there any comments on this? Just to refer back to what we said last time.
Before, yeah.
Right, we refer back to our previous response. 9G, 46 Shortmead Street, change of use and conversion of part of building from shop to 2 residential dwellings, including internal alterations. Any comments, please? Councillor Russell?
I don't think this is very satisfactory at all. If you look at the plans, the upstairs flat as a 1-bedroom flat is okay, just because it's not a large space. The ground floor flat, which would only be 2/3 of the ground floor, the front door would open into an area which is dining room, kitchen and living area. That would then open into a bedroom, and the bathroom opens out of the other side of the bedroom. So if you had a visitor who wanted to use the bathroom, they would have to go through the bedroom to get to it. It doesn't sound like a very adequate. I mean, this is against all the things we've been trying to talk about with the neighbourhood plan, in that, you know, there should be the right amenities for people. There are no parking spaces at all, so this would be something that would be allowed under those parking standards that are being proposed. There's no parking. We've already mentioned tonight the restrictions on Shortmead Street, which would mean that a resident there couldn't leave their car outside on a weekday and would have to find the nearest car park and then not leave it there all day. So not brilliant. I beg your pardon?
Noble Gardens.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the first time. So I think that we should talk about we should object strongly, and we should talk about the lack of parking with the restrictions that there are on Shortmead Street. I think it's overdevelopment. I think trying to squeeze that little flat in there is definitely overdevelopment. And I think we should remind the planners that the full weight of the neighbourhood plan should apply.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor North. Any comments, Councillor Bond?
I'd just like to pass a comment on the application itself, what Councillor Russell was saying. If you look very closely at the application, not both the flats actually meet Central Bed's minimum space requirements.
Thank you. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was this one or another application. I was looking at officers' reports, and one was suggesting that the neighbourhood plan is not fully in force yet. Is that correct?
I have seen a comment related to that, actually. Councillor Russell.
It was a comment to a previous version of an application by Eleanor Keep, and she obviously knows that the plan is in force because she took it through.
Thank you.
So I think we can ignore that one. It's an old comment.
Okay. Any last comments? No. So the proposal is to strongly object on the grounds of overdevelopment and not meeting Central Beds' minimum size standards, and on a lack of parking. We refer them to our neighbourhood plan, which is now in place. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. That's everybody. Thank you. 9H, 19 Ivel Gardens, work to a tree protected by a tree preservation order. Any comments on this? Councillor Alban?
I think it's been decided.
Right.
According to the papers on the Central Beds website on the 13th of December, which I think is today.
Okay. Any last desperate comments to try to save the tree by anybody? Or do we just note it? We'll note it, shall we? Okay, thank you. 12 Stratton Way, addition of 4 skylights to facilitate a loft conversion. Controversial one, this. No. No comments? Subject to neighbours? Thank you. Shocking that things like that need planning permission, but there we go. 9J, 29 Lilac Grove, single story rear extension and porch. Any comments? Subject to neighbours? Thank you. 9K, 43 Beach Avenue, side infill extension and garage conversion. Any comments? Subject to neighbours? Sorry, go on, Councillor.
Well, I didn't see the plans fully, but as long as there's no significant impact on parking, because it involves a garage conversion as well.
Yeah, I got the impression there's still
there probably is,
too.
but
Yeah.
it might be worth mentioning.
Okay. Do you want to make a proposal, or do we just? Did anybody look at this in enough detail to note the parking, or do we just say no, none subject to neighbours? Because unless we're actually confident, there's no point in raising it. None subject to neighbours. Is that okay? Thank you. Elmside, Potham Road, single story rear extensions. This is the house opposite the entrance to the King's Reach pub, I think. Any comments on this? None subject to neighbours? No. Okay, thank you. 11A, planning application outcomes. To receive the report of the planning application outcomes from 7th of December. Any comments on this? No. Do we note it? We note it, thank you. Lots still awaiting a decision, is what I would note. Item 12, the accounts. Councillor Pullinger, there are no accounts, are there?
Deja vu, yes. You did that last time. They're not available this time.
Do you want to update us on this, Peter?
No, I just wanted to draw your attention to it before.
Oh, okay. Right. Wait for January, going to be 2 sets of accounts. So you'll be in your element, Councillor Pullinger. Item 13, I don't know why there's none. Items for information. So item 13A, tree felling in Biggleswade, for members to receive an oral report from the Head of Governance and Strategic Partnerships. Karim, do you want to come and speak?
Thank you, Chair. So there is a hard copy drawing on the green board behind me, which has come from CBC and shows the 4 specific trees in question, their locations, out of a possible total 11 trees, which you currently have in the Market Square. in correspondence, email correspondence with the CBC team, they've asked us which type of tree, replacement tree, we would prefer for the 4 trees which will be felled in early to mid-January, after we've confirmed to CBC that our tree lines have been removed and taken down. We've gone to initially our public realm manager to consider which specific type of replacement trees would be desirable for the town square, what would actually fit and be suitable for several decades to come. And obviously any suggestions are more than welcome from members. We're aiming obviously to provide CBC officers with our kind of response in early January. And CBC additionally have confirmed to us, again via email correspondence, that they will be using traditional paving stones, which are similar to the ones currently in place in the square, for each tree surround, rather than replacing or putting in tarmac. So this will conform much better with the current configuration. So.
Thank you, Karim. One quick question. Do we know whether the removal of the trees and replacing them with new trees does that have to be part of the same exercise, or do we know whether the options on the table to remove the trees and just leave it for the time being? Perhaps we don't want trees in all of those places, for example. I don't know. Do we know that or not?
We haven't actually gone to that, but that is a possibility that there'll be a sort of fallow period, if you like, in between the two. So I will obviously go back and ask them that as we continue the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor North, with your microphone, please.
No, yeah, when is this likely to take place then? We know.
Karim?
Thank you. So in email correspondence, there is one out of the 4 trees which is specifically quite urgent. They've come telling us which is the one essentially outside the restaurant, and therefore they'd like to do the job in one go in terms of all 4 trees rather than individually. And again, it's subject to them being able to book in time with the contractors as needs be. So realistically, we're looking at end of January or beyond.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, then Councillor Alvin.
I think we should go back to them and say that we're unhappy with replacing the trees straight away. I think the point you raised is exactly right. And they may want to do it straight away because it's still tree planting season, but at least if we could delay the tree planting until the autumn of 2023, it gives us a chance to see if we can take further the changes that we might want to be made to the Market Square, with possibly the closure of the bus exit route. And I think it would be completely wrong. I agree, obviously they want to take all the trees out at the same time and make good. And I think it needs making good. I think we might need to grit our teeth and accept a bit more tarmacking if the trees aren't replaced straight away. But I certainly don't think they should be thinking about planting the trees as soon as they've taken them out. And I'd like to make that as a formal proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Knight has seconded that. Is there further comments? Councillor Alvin.
Is there any indication what kind of, how mature the trees will be that they wish to replace them with?
Karim, do we know that?
My understanding, again, in email correspondence, is that it's reasonably mature. So they won't be tiny, is my understanding.
Thank you, Karim. Jonathan? Sorry, Councillor Woodhead, I beg your pardon.
Thank you. It's kind of like a sort of side but related issue. Obviously, the roots of some of those trees are quite considerable and have been buckling the pavement. I assume would the pavement works be undertaken at the same time? Because I know that a number of slabs and bits of paving have come loose and people have been tripping over them apparently, and so on and so forth. So that obviously would need to happen at the same time, just so we can make it all smoothed out, which also then links into Councillor Russell's point about putting new trees in, and whatever. We do, I think, need a bit of time to get all this settled and sorted first, not least with some of the summer events that we're looking at planning as well.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. I think Karim nodded, that is in scope, right? Okay, any last comments? No, so we have a proposal. The proposal is to reply to Central Bed saying that whilst the trees may need to come out urgently, they don't need to be replaced immediately. We'd like a discussion about the location of where future trees could go in the broader context of the layout of the market square. Is that a fair summary? Yes. Okay. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. Thank you very much. And obviously that is quite pressing, given the timelines. We could see this work starting soon. So thank you, Corinne, for pursuing this. Item 13B, CCTV update. For members to receive a written update from the place shaping manager. So Isaac, do you have an update on the CCTV?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So a mobile camera unit was installed at the Drove Road Chapel on Friday gone. And we are also, that our suppliers are confident that their subcontractors have received the majority of the kit ready for installation across the town centre. It's just subject to an novation agreement being agreed with CBC, which Karim knows a bit more detail about, if I could pass over.
Yep, Karim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Isaac. Yeah, essentially, so just yesterday, I had a conversation with CBC leads for their CCTV strategy, and they've indicated to us quite strongly this time that the BT Openreach work to install their new fibre line will be done before or by the end of this calendar year. In other words, before Christmas, essentially. We are actually meeting with said officers this Thursday as well to finalise the details regarding the novation agreement.
Excellent. And then what does that mean for the timeline once that connection is in place?
So overall, it means once we have the kit in place, as in the equipment which is fully arrived, which we're expecting by mid to late January from the supplier, and the novation agreement in hand, which should take no more than 2 working days, I've been told from the BT engineer side of things, to complete and in hand, we should be good to go by the end of January, early February.
Okay.
In terms of going, installing the kit and going live.
Thank you. Councillor Knight.
Thank you for the update. It's very helpful. It sounds like there has been some delay potentially caused by the challenges getting this novation agreement in place. Obviously, you have an imminent meeting. Could I ask that you share an update with members by email after that meeting, just so we understand the status, please, and whether we need to do anything to escalate things if the right decisions aren't made in that meeting? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, could we minute that, please?
Yes, indeed.
Is that all right?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Thanks, will do.
Thank you. Any further comments? No, so thank you for the report. It's good that this is progressing and we look forward to receiving that update following the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Knight. Item 13C, defibrillator report update for members to receive a written report from the place shaping manager. Isaac, is there anything to add to this?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Please accept my apologies for this. I know it was already put to council. I was honestly unaware there was even a difference between defibrillator indoor and outdoor cabinets, hence the report. Thank you.
That's okay, but we're now looking for another location. Councillor Knight?
So when we talked about it, we talked a little bit about the need to make sure the cabinet was vandal-proof going outside. So I'm a little surprised that we got this far down the road and discovered it wasn't suitable to go outside. Could it go inside? Because when the pitch is in use, my expectation would be the changing rooms will be unlocked. And therefore, in the event there's an emergency, people would be able to get access to it in the best place. And it would also make it much harder for anyone to vandalise it if it can only be accessed if the changing rooms are open. So is putting it inside the changing rooms not actually a good idea?
That's a good question. I'll take a comment from Councillor Pullinger and then we'll come back to officers.
And I think one of the suggestions that actually was made at the last meeting, because of the concerns about vandalism, was the potential to maybe put a coded lock on the actual changing rooms rather than on a cabinet, so that in an emergency someone can access the changing rooms to get to the defibrillator. But all of the times it's even more secure than it would have been on an external cabinet. So maybe that's something to consider.
Thank you. Are we all right to note this report then, and Councillor Knight's comments can be minuted about potentially putting it inside, and if that's not possible, we can come back. Councillor Knight.
I guess if there's a proposal, the proposal is, can officers look at installing the defibrillator inside, fitting a coded lock to the external door if appropriate, please.
Thank you. Okay, so a seconder for that proposal. Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Russell?
I'm probably losing track of what's going on, but I thought the defibrillator was supposed to be for use wider than the Orchard Centre.
This is at Stratton Way. Yeah.
Told you I'd lost the plot.
It's all right, still bogged down in some of that parking stuff, Councillor Russell. I think it's okay. Okay, are officers okay to take that away if that is the proposal? I'm seeing nods. Okay, so all those in favour of that proposal, it goes inside the changing rooms. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for this update, and that sounds like a sensible result. Item 13D, Orchard Community Centre update report. So for members to receive a written update from the place shaping manager. Now, I would just say from the chair, for members to approve the hire agreement and policy, this feels a bit more like an item for consideration than an item for information. But if that's no longer the recommendation, happy to listen. Councillor Pullinger, let me go to officers first and then we'll come to councillors. I'll come to you first, Councillor Pullinger. Isaac.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have already had some very helpful feedback from Councillor Strawn, so thank you. And that will be incorporated into the hire agreement and policy with a clean version produced at a later council meeting.
Okay, so is actually the suggestion from officers that we just deferred us to a future meeting?
Yes, with feedback, of course.
Okay, well, we can take some of that feedback now, potentially. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So I was going to suggest that we defer any decision on the basis that I've got quite a number of comments which I haven't yet had a chance to share with officers. I would suggest that actually, as the Orchard Centre comes under the remit of F&GP, that it perhaps goes to the next F&GP meeting in January rather than necessarily back to full council. But I won't go into depth on all my various comments if that's going to be the case.
Thank you, Councillor Pullinger. Yes, this would normally come via a committee first, I think. Any last comments, Councillor Knight?
I'll just raise one comment if I can. So on clause 9, it seems odd to me to limit the liability of the hirer to only £125. To my mind, if there is any damage caused as a result of the hirer should be responsible, and their insurance, not our insurance, should cover it.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Okay, any last comments? No. Okay, so we're going to bring this probably to F&GP in January, if that's all right, given that some comments have already been received. Councillor Pullinger has some more. We'll be able to look at this at a committee level, so thank you. Item 13E, for members to receive an update from Central Bedfordshire Council regarding Station Road, Saffron Road, Palace Street closures. Any comments on this? Councillor Strawn?
Yeah, I've still got concerns, as I've expressed previously, about how the system's going to work, because they're just closing off roads without actually giving any thought to alternative accesses. I suppose we as a council should be declaring interest at this stage, because we'd have to go the wrong way down Saffron Road to get here. So this isn't satisfactory. We need clearer information about how it's going to work. And it's going to affect residents in Saffron Court, Saffron Road. It's just, yeah, it's got to be done in one form or another, but it just hasn't been thought through, in my view, properly and explained or explained properly.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who didn't really understand how it was going to work.
Oh, okay, so we're all just a bit baffled, aren't we? Okay. We're going round in circles a little bit here, but we've had this at several meetings now, and I'm still as in the dark as anybody, I think. Do we need a proposal, or are we just going to wait for something more useful? I don't know, Councillor Strawn.
I suggest that the council writes back to Central Bed saying we note the proposals, however would like an explanation as to exactly how this is intended to work, because of points that how do we get to our offices for a start, how do residents get to their homes in Saffron Road, Saffron Court, and generally it's very unclear to the uneducated eye.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Councillor Strawn's comments. I think the key thing is that this may be all well and good in terms of what they're actually seeking permission for in terms of road closure at whatever times they do it. What it doesn't give us any information is what actually is going to be closed and when, and what the provision is going to be made for resident and business access during those times. And I think at the very least, they need to proactively communicate by letter effectively to all of the premises on the affected streets.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're Councillor Bond.
You could always invite Nick Shaw to come and actually discuss it with you, to actually explain to town council what's actually going on with this?
Maybe.
Mm.
Okay.
Because he'll probably bring another officer with him to back him up on it. To
Okay.
actually help explain.
Right. I mean, this should be something that should be sort of semi-routine. I know Central Beds close roads all the time that are one way. So, Councillor Russell.
Oh, we still haven't got the answers, as Councillor Pullinger's outlined, and the one thing I'd like to add is access to the station, which isn't clear at all.
No. Okay, so there's things that we need to be clear on. It's what are the timings for this and the sequencing of various roads being closed, and when those roads are closed, how will the people who live on those roads, the businesses which operate from them, access either their properties or their premises? Same question for the station when Station Road is closed. That's basically the question that we need answering, and I don't think this provides it. Sorry, that's not a snip at you there, Krim. Do you have a comment on that, or was there more information? I don't know.
Just a little bit more information, thanks. Just to add, to be helpful, to pick up on what all councillors have said, including your good self. We wrote over a week ago back to CBC asking specifically at most of those points, at least. We haven't received a response yet. What we have received is obviously the information in front of us.
Okay.
So we went ahead, if you like, and we're still where we're at.
Okay, I think we can just keep asking. We know it's coming sometime in the next month or so, don't we? Okay, thank you. Yep. I don't know what the resolution was there, but it was, I think it was as I just outlined at the end, if we can keep chipping away on that and update council as and when. Right, item 14, public open session to adjourn for a period of 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes, to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council, 1 3-minute slot per person. Do we have anybody who's joined us online? No, and nobody has managed to brave the Arctic conditions to make it here either, which is okay. So that means that we have one final item, which is an exempt item to consider land north of Biggleswade. Does somebody, and we had a comment about this earlier, I explained why we're looking to move this into exempt. Is any further explanation required, or is somebody happy to move that we go into exempt session? Councillor Russell?
Move that we go into exempt.
Okay. Is everybody happy going into exempt session? Is there any dissent?